Okay, class. Today, we will be learning how to summon Force Lightning.
Yes, Master.
Oh, I could absolutely use some Force Lightning. That'll totally
Darth
give me...
Millennial,
But it'll...
I did not ask you to shout out in the middle of my class.
But...
You must raise your hand first. But not like that. You might actually shoot me with Force Lightning. Because really all you gotta do to do Force Lightning is do your hand like this. Just gotta make the little claw.
So, like, I make a claw with my hand, but how do I get the flash from the lightning to affect my selfie a little bit better? Because I really need that light from the lightning to give me some better... Because this room's really dark. I don't know what it is about this classroom, man, but it's, like, really...
You are supposed to feed off of the darkness. Like your other pupils.
Master, my anger for Darth Millennial is fueling me. I can summon the Lightning Lord.
But, so, wait a minute. So what do I need to do here? So what about this whole living forever thing? Because, like, is there any way for me to, like, give that power to somebody else and, like, help them out?
Darth Millennial!
What?
I will have you hush your mouth! You are disrupting my class! My other pupils cannot learn to hate with your constant yammering.
But, so if I was looking for power, unlimited power, would that be able to charge my cell phone? Because I'm on like 6% battery right now.
Master, I can't concentrate. My anger is rising too quickly. I think he's a good teacher's assistant, to be honest.
Okay, now I'm at 5%. I really need to get this
Never
lightning
mind,
thing under
Master.
control.
May I kill him now?
Someone strike this person down!
And then your journey to the dark side will be complete, bro. Charge my phone!
Hey everybody, I'm Dane Hotland.
I'm Austin Shazam Pfeiffer.
I'm Marcus Whitaker.
I'm Austin Tiny Zent.
And this is Nerded Through the Grapevine, the podcast where four best friends gather weekly to talk about our favorite parts of past, present, and future nerd culture. And this first topic involves our kind of recent nerd past and nerd future and present all into one, because Game of Thrones House of the Dragon has come out, and we've seen one episode, and by the time this airs, the second episode will have aired as well. And we want to talk about that first episode and kind of what we're feeling about it compared to the original Game of Thrones show and the books, which I haven't read, Austin hasn't read, but Tiny and Marcus have, and just kind of where we stand on the show, even as we've just seen an hour of it. And there will be spoilers, so get ready for that. Everybody dies and there's a bunch of dragons. No, there is dragons right away. You see a dragon right away, which is really cool. And in the original show, it took forever for there to be a dragon on the screen. But I mean, this has dragons in the name, so you'd expect that. But let's talk about just the look of it, just the way the show looks right off the bat.
I actually thought that the House of Dragons looked like Game of Thrones at its best.
Mm-hmm.
Just the costuming was vibrant.
Yes.
I mean, it looked like it was in more of like a Renaissance period, kind of like an Age of Awakening kind of deal, to where everybody was a whole lot better off than what they were during Game of Thrones, because Game of Thrones is just a giant struggle bus the entire time, just a fight for the Iron Throne. So the way that this is going, you're looking at it and it's got a lot of different stuff happening in it to where you wish there was more of this in Game of Thrones. And I mean, also the dragons looked phenomenal.
They're more colorful as well.
Exactly.
And they have saddles.
They do have saddles.
Yay.
Tiny, they have saddles.
Nice.
Which they should have had originally.
Yes.
And at the same time, too, what we're looking at in this age is the age of the Dragon Riders.
Yes.
So the age of the Dragon Riders, you're going to not just be this, this girl that just so happened to hatch these 3 dragons out of a fire. You're going to be in a generation to where dragons are still part of your day-to-day life, and you're going to make them a more practical use as opposed to them being more necessary use.
Yeah,
So,
there's going to be equipment involved to make the usability easier as opposed to, hey, these things have just come back and I just want to do this with all my heart.
Right.
And any fans of Doctor Who, gosh, I hope you like Matt Smith's Doctor because you get to see him I think he is in
Incredible.
He's in rare form in this.
Yeah, he's good, and I think this character's perfect for like him.
Oh, absolutely.
But I loved the costuming. I thought
Yes.
all the caps, like you didn't see anybody wear caps in Game of Thrones. But and it kind of works because it's a different era. It's the height of Targaryen power. It's been a time of peace, prosperity, and so yes,
Headwear.
I love the colorful heraldry and the headwear. Yes, I do. I love that. They're going to update it just a little bit, like little liberties, like making Dragonstone much bigger and things like that than it was in Game of Thrones. I think are all good changes. Well, and the Iron Throne itself is a little bit more akin to how it is in the book.
Right.
It's not exactly still, but I don't know. It definitely, they're trying to make it more Martin-like, and I'm glad about that, of course.
It's a lot more savage, the Iron Throne is, because in the Game of Thrones, you're going to be able to see the Iron Throne, of course, and then everything's changed inside of the gallery where it's at. But the gallery where it's at now in House of Dragons is not just the Iron Throne made out of swords, it's the Iron Throne and then thousands of other swords made into the room that's surrounding it. It's very intimidating and scary looking.
That's a big difference between the show, the original show and this show is the Iron Throne in the original show almost looked soft in a way. I mean, yeah, it looked spiky and, it's made of swords, but it also had a smoothness to it. And in House of the Dragon,
More mangled.
It's much more. It's more dangerous. Is it House of Dragons or House of the Dragon?
House of the Dragon.
I got it right. It's scarier looking. Like, and even the main character shows him, one of the main characters getting little cuts on him from the throne itself because it's made of swords. They're like, this thing is dangerous to sit in,
which many kings have dealt with.
Yeah,
and it's actually killed some kings.
Really,
and some kings have lost fingers to the throne. Yeah,
wow.
So I mean, it's in the lore that the Iron Throne is a dangerous seat.
It's literally dangerous as well as figuratively dangerous, being the king.
Exactly.
And you mentioned that it's not as everybody's not in desperation of all these things like in the original one, but we're also only seeing it from the Targaryen perspective pretty much right now. We're really only getting things from the rulers of the land. So we're seeing everything adorned and all these beautiful things and all this order and stuff. But I think once we start viewing it from other perspectives, we're going to see a lot more of that desperation and fight for, even the throne itself, because there's constantly fights for the throne. As soon as, and even in this first episode, an heir is named for the throne, which is a big part of the episode. And as soon as that happens, you already know the characters from that episode that are going to be basically going against this person for the throne, already, just right off the bat. And they do a really good job of setting up everyone's roles pretty much to the throne, and without too much exposition. It's just the way that they're gathered around the meeting table. Pretty much the higher ups, the hand of the king is sitting on his own side of the table, and the maesters and all those other people are sitting on the opposite side. And the person that, what's the guy that's the seahorse, the family?
Corlys Velaryon.
Yeah, he's cool as hell.
He's very cool.
But he's also symbolism, sitting at the far end of the table, the separate side of the table, because his wife was the queen who never was.
Exactly.
So there's already been this animosity between the current king and him and his wife.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the only reason the current king is on the throne is because they voted for him because they were scared to elect a woman.
Right.
And that was his wife. But now that same king that benefited from that choice has named his daughter the heir.
Right.
So it's by right, that's actually her throne.
Yes. So that's one of those immediate enemies. Immediate and family. It's family, which is common in this whole setting anyway.
And for those who don't know, I'm not going to try to spoil anything, but this is a story where we know kind of where it goes as book lore fans. But it's that we talked about, it's the height of Targaryen power, and they have in the book canon maybe 18 or so dragons at this point. Well, after this event that is a named event in Martin's lore and history, there's not many at all. So this is going to see the Targaryens be the most powerful dominant force in Westeros to like brought pretty low by the end of the story.
Isn't this book around the time of Aegon the Conqueror?
No, that's 150 years afterwards.
Okay.
So basically 2 generations after. Because the
Gotcha.
King Viserys actually rode Balerion the Black Dread, which was Aegon's dragon. But he was an
Gotcha.
old dragon at that point, and was kind of on his way out already. So
Whose bones are in basically the basement of the castle, right?
correct, right.
Now you get a look at the main character, which the female character. It's going to take me a few episodes to get the names of these people
That's
down.
Rhaenyra.
Okay, well, her dragon is golden. It's beautiful,
Caraxes, I believe.
and it looks about the same size as like Drogon and whatever the other dragon was, but it looks about that size. So we think, just from watching previous Game of Thrones stuff, that's what the dragons are going to look like. That's what a full-grown dragon's going to look like. Bullshit, because then you see Matt Smith's character's dragon, and it is the scariest looking thing.
They
Like
call it the bloodworm.
because
For good reason too.
'Cause it's got that long serpent-like neck.
Yes, it looks like more of like a Japanese iteration of a dragon by the way that it can kind of squiggles and swirls while it's flying, but at the same time it's bigger than like an entire train would be, and the girth of it and everything is like multiplied by like 20 of that. It's humongous.
So beautiful.
And it's scary to think because we've not seen full-grown dragons in full-grown dragon fight. So that's going to be something awesome to witness visually.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this first episode immediately took me from I don't give a shit about Game of Thrones anymore. Like the show ruined me. I'm not one of the lucky ones to have read the book first, to at least have that to enjoy all the way up to a certain point. But before we started watching it, before we pressed play, it was, okay, what do we think this is going to be like? And I remember saying it has to be something that gets people back. Like that if it's anything less than, it won't be a success. Like it has to be something that immediately takes people and goes, you're back into Game of Thrones and you love it again.
Yeah.
And it worked because I've already got some questions just from the first episode. Some things have been brought to light as far as like dreams of the Targaryens of the past.
Ooh, can we talk about that lore bomb?
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, Tiny, do you want the episode spoiled or?
I don't care. I'm
Okay.
probably not going to watch it.
Okay. Well, this King Viserys tells Rhaenyra when he makes her the heir that Aegon the Conqueror conquered not only for power, but because he had had a prophetic dream of this cold wind and this cold death coming from the north, and that he had to unite the 7 kingdoms to deal with that threat. That was some far-off future event. I mean, and the Targaryens are known for their prophetic dreams. The reason they end up not getting killed in the doom of Valyria was because Daenerys the Dreamer had a dream, and they got out like 20 years before that happened.
And that's why they were really the only dragon riders after that too,
Exactly,
right?
exactly. And they brought the dragons to Westeros. It's just really cool, and it's like kind of got the fandom kind of trying to digest this new lore bomb. I mean, because that just kind of recontextualizes Aegon's conquering. Of course, it could just be a political myth too, that just enhances their right to rule or whatever. But it does seem that this secret may or may not be lost during this time, and that Rhaegar rediscovers this when he decides that he needs to be a warrior and that he is to birth the prince that was promised.
And
that's maybe what made him steal Lyanna,
it was
to try to birth the prince that was promised.
It was brutal. Like the show was brutal.
Oh yeah, there's a really hard scene to watch.
There is a really hard scene to watch. Just get ready for it, folks. If you're going to watch the show and you haven't already, there's a really brutal scene. Because, I watched some gory stuff. And I'm into a lot of different horror genres and everything else like that. Oh, excuse me, horror.
Yes.
Genres. And, gory stuff's not that big of a deal, but they played it out so heavy in this episode that it was almost hard to watch. Like it was gruesome. I also liked the little, just like that Family Guy episode to where they're watching, movies and, I just really get excited whenever they say the name of the movie. and they're talking about, was it Aegon?
Yeah.
They're talking about him, having that prophetic dream, and he called it the Song of Ice and Fire.
Right.
Oh, he said it. He said it.
Yeah. No, it's a good. I love that. It gave me chills. That was probably my favorite part of the episode for sure, just because it gave all of us lore freaks something to chew on after how many years of nothing. But it raises questions as well. So,
which is what it needed to do.
Absolutely.
Like it needed to grab those that are into the lore and the books and all this other stuff, as well as just the people who have only consumed the TV show.
and it does something that I was hoping it would do in the sense of not shying away from the lore and fantasy magical elements of the story. So I'm really, really hoping that they can like get that part right this time, because that would, like I said, it's going to be lore bombs for us fans to go and like go reread the book since we don't have the freaking ending.
Isn't this one based on Fire and Blood?
It's based on a section of Fire and Blood.
Okay.
And Fire and Blood is told from a maester's point of view.
Correct.
Is that right?
It's basically, I think, I've not read it, but I've just, I've digested all the lore a lot online. And yeah, it's two separate maesters kind of with two separate ideas of what may have happened back then of the time period that they're writing about. So they're writing about it after the fact.
Yeah.
So so much is lost. And so I guess you can kind of look at the show as if it's like what really happened, behind the scenes.
Because we're watching it firsthand.
Right,
and then
right.
You see where some of that lore maybe in the future
Exactly.
got mixed up.
Right. Well, and maesters possibly are even anti-magic and literally hatching a conspiracy at the moment to rid the world of dragons at this moment. That's a big theory in the fandom based on the books and stuff. And by the looks of the first episode, that Otto Hightower, because that's where the maesters are trained, and he's the Lord of Hightower, of Old Town. And so a lot of people already see connection where they're trying to orchestrate to get rid of magic in the world.
Well, because if knowledge is power, then the only thing that would be stopping the ones that are the keepers of the knowledge from exercising their overall total power and dominance would be the fact that you've got, your 43-ton flying, fire bazookas in the sky. That's
Weapons
gonna,
of mass destruction.
Yeah, that's going to
We found them.
that's going to definitely trump what you know. It's not gonna do you a damn bit of good if you know everything in the world if you just get turned into a smoldering cinder.
Right.
Yeah. And music as well for the show. Like the
Beautiful.
score, if you love the Game of Thrones score, you're going to love this one.
Absolutely.
Like
and even if the show sucks, like the end of Game of Thrones, we're at least going to have that wonderful music by Ramin.
Live on forever.
Yeah.
Get it on
well, because I
vinyl.
still listen to the Night King theme sometimes
Ooh.
and imagine some of the visuals from the show, because there were some beautiful visuals of like the Night King coming in with the backdrop of the red weirwood leaves. And it was just so beautiful. I was like, oh my God. And the music. And so, I just listened to that and reimagine my own ending, to it a lot.
I think a lot of the stuff in the show as well, like giving us a past perspective of the way things used to be. It's also given us, those cannon bombs to where we're getting, the different houses that we're aware of, the different places that are being named that we're already aware of, and, how people view those certain places, like the way they're talking about the Vale. Like talking about how, you're sending me there to isolate me. The only thing that they do in the Vale is they go out and they screw sheep. Like this is not where I need to be kind of place. And then you get to thinking like, well, really, is it that bad? And then you think of Game of Thrones and about the lady that was over the Vale and her son. And it's just like, well, yeah, it is kind of a screwed up place, ain't it?
Yeah.
I would like to do a topic on that boy
Oh, geez.
one day. Sweet Robin is his name.
Yeah.
Oh, the one that got to sit on the council?
Yes, there are some very, very cool theories about him that I will talk about one day.
Just like
do.
a Game of Thrones style kid with broom.
Yes.
You know who? Oh, it's Lysa Arryn's son, the one who's still breastfeeding, even though he's like 8.
The one that I want to strangle to death.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
you still want to.
I think after
Michelle.
my theories of, it's not my theories, but after doing some theories about him, you might feel somewhat different about him.
At the very beginning of this episode, it has some text on the screen that says this takes place 172 or 4, something like that, years before Daenerys Targaryen. And then it's got some other text involved with that. But then the other
As long
text,
as you don't do the math.
right, yeah. And the other text like fades away and it leaves the words 174 years before Daenerys Targaryen. They're like, listen, this has nothing to do with her. This is all the past. Please forget everything you know because this is new and different. And
Right, but
it influences, her future.
It almost strike me as like, duh, we know.
Duh,
we're
but
not done.
They're
Like,
also having to separate themselves from the thing that we all hate, which is the last,
Yeah,
of
I mean,
that
because
show.
that's what some of the critics are saying. It's like it's a really good prequel to a dumpster fire.
Yeah.
So like, who cares? I mean, and I can see that, but people like me who are invested in the lore, no matter whether or not we get the last 2 books, it's still some of my favorite lore that's out there because it's just so deep with mysteries and secrets. It's a beautiful thing.
So as of right now, the 3 of us that have watched it, we are super into it. We're ready for what is to come, but there's also plenty of time for it to also become its own dragon-fueled dumpster fire. So, but I hope that they've learned from the mistakes of others and actually love the content enough to kind of keep the role they've got going right now. Mm-hmm. Which after an hour, solid.
Well, and George is actually involved. As painful as it is for me to say this, because that means we're not getting a winner, but he's involved with the show, and so therefore everything's going to be a lot more lore accurate now. I think
there's always such a huge difference whenever the original creator of a work is involved with something like this. It's happened with Neil Gaiman. Now it's happening with George Martin as well.
And the only other thing I'm worried about with the show, because I felt like the first one was kind of boring, but then it got a little bit more interesting as it got going. But they're going to that Rhaenyra and Alicent, the 2 young girls in that episode, are going to be recast at some point in this season
because they get older, right?
Right, as older characters, and I just don't know if that was necessary. Like, I don't know. I feel like as fans, we're going to get attached to these actors and actresses, or as just the general audience are going to get attached, and then when they recast, people are going to be like, I don't even care anymore. I do worry about that.
I saw the actress that's the more grown-up Rhaenyra, and she looks like she could be like an older version of her. So hopefully the other one is spot on like that too.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest things you're risking by doing that is by risking whether or not these actors have the proper chops to keep up with who their younger counterparts were, because the younger counterparts are doing a hellacious job right now. They're doing good.
Yeah.
Doing real well. So, I mean, you get those older ones in there to play them, they better be able to hold up to it, because otherwise that'll just set it on fire.
Yeah. No, I think they know how important that is. So at this point, I know I've got 1 hour of a sample, but I've got faith in them to make a decision like that would work, especially for the casting.
I'm
Matt
excited
Smith.
For the second episode for sure.
Yeah, I am too.
Which now things should get pretty.
Which airs in 5 hours.
Nice.
Yes.
And while we've got dragons on the brain, I've been watching some dragon stuff as well. And it's not just 1 episode. It's 3 seasons. And it's an animation. It's on Netflix. It's called DOTA, Dragon's Blood.
Nice.
And DOTA is a very entertaining animation. It combines, your normal animation styles, which look very, very good, with CGI graphics that go along with it that do a good job of blending the 2 varieties together. So I really enjoy it. I looked into it a little bit just because I wanted to talk about it a little bit, not just the show and the characters, but also the base of origins for the show, because the world is vast. And the world actually started in the year 2002, whenever they started making this world, because it was an offshoot of Warcraft 3, Reign of Chaos. It was a little subsection of it called Defense of the Ancients. DOTA.
Oh, okay.
And that was its original iteration that it came out with. Then you had what the show is actually based off of, which is Dota 2, which is the more developed, more in-depth look of this world in this region in this time frame.
Puberty.
And that's how they're able to actually, develop such good characters and such massive overarching areas and different stuff that looks really, really good. And it's got some deep lore to it. But the Dota 2 was a MOBA game, not mobile game, MOBA, which MOBA stands for Multiplayer Online Battle Arena. So it's like a mixture of both real-time strategy and RPG put into one. To where you're having to, team up with people, teams of 5 against teams of 5, and so on, to where you're having to battle this stuff out. In Dota Dragon's Blood, they pull from all these different sources in the video game. So you've got different classes and genres of players that you can play. You can actually pick 123 different characters in Dota 2 to become. So, I mean, it looks awesome. I've never played it just because, I was never a Warcraft guy, but I always thought Warcraft looked very entertaining, and there's so much lore surrounding Warcraft that it's hard not to get into it once it gets presented in your face like the way Dota does.
I was going to say things like MOBAs, they usually have a lot of lore attached to them because the game itself doesn't become enough for some people because they're enjoying it. Now, why am I enjoying this so much? What are these characters? What are their lives like? What's their history? So then they expand into a lot of this lore that is perfect for making something like animation for.
Yes.
So are they still like attached to that Warcraft, or is they've kind of separated and gone their own way now?
It is an unspoken thing because what they've got is the world as a setting, and you just have to know that that's where it is. I mean, they don't explain it to you.
So it is kind of its own thing.
Yes, it's a more of like a loose iteration based on.
Cool.
But the voice cast that's in this is awesome.
Solid.
It is so cool. Let me give you a little list of the characters here, which I don't know Yuri Lowenthal that well. He plays Davion, the main Dragon Knight. Davion is a character that is a Dragon Knight. The Dragon Knights, of course, are superhuman strength and agility and all this other stuff because they are combating dragons, and they're the ones who are fighting dragons. And dragons to humans are like the ultimate evil. They're the ones that they're just destruction. That's all they are, destruction incarnate. But through fighting an elder dragon known as an eldworm, he is fused with this eldworm because the eldworm, although he sees him as insignificant, referring to him oftentimes as little mouse, they fuse together. So Davion isn't now the guy who has to go and kill dragons is a dragon. It is now in his blood that he is a dragon. That's why it's called Dota Dragon's Blood.
Dope.
You got Laura Pulver, who's playing Princess Marana. Princess Marana is a badass character throughout several different story arcs within the 3 series, or the seasons, excuse me. They've got a development of her character from like this princess who's, a little bit outcast and not really wanting the throne and all of this to you've got a deeper purpose. They develop a deeper purpose for her. And she is actually the child of the energy of the star.
So you've got Star Child and Dragon Man.
Yes.
Like as two of the main
Two of the
characters
main
in it.
ones. I mean, she's the princess of the Night Silver Woods. I mean, she goes on a quest with her mute bodyguard who's got super strength. I mean, they've got a lot of cool characters that go along with it. Slyrak is the Eldworm of Fire. He is one of the main sources of primordial power to this universe. And until Davion fights him and becomes one with him, he had no idea that this structure even existed like this. So they thought Eldworms were just these ancient, powerful dragons. They had no idea that there was a primordial connection to these dragons with the actual world existing. So they're a necessary thing. They're necessary forces of nature.
So they basically like make reality real.
Exactly. And the ones,
like that.
when the collective of dragons are together, all of the different elements and creation and destruction and everything that they represent, they are referred to as the Thunder.
Which I know you like.
Oh, God, I love it.
considering
I love
Shazam,
it.
it's in your bones.
Absolutely. And one of my favorite voice actors is the voice of Slyrak, Tony Todd.
So you have other work that I'm familiar with?
Oh, absolutely. Tony Todd's been
What
in
does
every...
his voice sound like?
Like... Not at all.
Oh, well,
He was the voice of... Well, let me just look it up here and try to give you a little depiction. Mm-hmm. He was the Candyman in the original Candyman movie. He was in the Final Destination franchise. He's been in the Transformers movies. He played Darkseid in the DC animated movie universe.
Oh.
He's got that really deep, raspy butter
powerful,
voice. Yes.
yeah.
Was
And
he the one that did Megatron?
I believe so.
no, Megatron, the original Megatron voice guy did Megatron.
No, he was the voice of the Fallen. Which was like
yeah.
the big in Revenge of the Fallen. Then you've got Troy Baker,
Who does Troy play?
the Invoker. The Invoker is a dark elf sage that is pivotal to Marana's quest, but also because he's made deals with this like demonic character that's decided he's going to take over all of the primordial dragon's powers.
I saw that moment in the show with you, and that
Yes.
was Troy.
Troy Baker.
Man, that dude's
Yes.
voice, he can do anything he wants.
Yes,
Awesome.
He is awesome, and he actually voices more than one character in the
course.
show, just because he's there.
If you've got him in the studio, you got to have him just do it all if he can.
Yep. And I really don't recognize anybody else's names that I've gone through just because they don't really stand out to me. Terrorblade is the name of the demon, though. And basically what he feeds off of is the malevolent fears that are inside of us. So he takes those fears, he amplifies those fears until he convinces you that without him, you will not be able to conquer said fears. So by accepting the inevitability that you will fail, he takes control of you.
That's cool.
And he's so good at it that he actually does that to some of the primordial dragons, some of the eldworms, and he takes on a draconic form himself.
Dope.
So, draconic demon that can appear anywhere at any time as long as there's the presence of fear. I mean, it's a very deep and powerful story, and I suggest people watch it because, number one, I love animation. I watch a lot of animated stuff, be it normal animation or anime. This is actually a little bit closer to normal animation than it would be anime. It's not over-exaggerated eyes and everything.
I think that's why I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
It's more Western.
I literally watched like half of the first episode and fell asleep just because I was like really tired. But I haven't had the chance to go try it again. But I think just because it's slightly less typical anime, that I'm like much more receptive to it. I don't know why.
Yeah. Well, you're drawn more to the Western animation.
I
It's
guess.
just- yeah.
I mean, plus dragons.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
dragons are draws to me.
Primordial dragons especially.
You know, I just got through watching an anime not too long ago, about 45 minutes to an hour ago, that was basically based on malevolent forces being embodied inside of dragons. So, I mean, it's a recurring theory and plot point inside of a lot of different shows that I watch. But DOTA is definitely one of the best ones, just because it's one thing to take an animation and make it good, like, say, Castlevania, because Castlevania is just gruesome and gory and, you know, dark, and, you know, it's just really a lot of stuff that goes well with any show that you would like to watch, but it's put into really smooth, well-done animation. Then you take DOTA, which is very similar to it in its animation style, plus a little bit of extra CGI graphics to go along with it to make the more grandiose things stick out, like the dragons that just wouldn't look right, you know, to be of the same nature as the piddly little mouse, as he refers to them. So it makes them above and beyond the rest of it because they are actually above and beyond even in appearance.
That is a really cool method of doing that, is change the entire graphic nature of it compared to everything else in the world to show that it's beyond what everything else is.
That is kind of cool.
That's cool. I didn't even think about that. That's
it's
really
like
neat.
it's like it exists on a higher plane of existence
Yeah.
almost.
A three-dimensional thing inside
Right.
of a two-dimensional world.
Exactly.
And in the first season, you're going to be dealing with different aspects of Davion's coming to recognize what the entirety of the dragon's purposes are. You get that along with Mirana's realization that she is actually the child of the star and is empowered by the power of the sun. She can actually emanate the power of the sun itself. And then the second season, it's going to be a little topsy-turvy because you're going to get into the idea of creation destruction and how they're going to, you know, bounce back from this Terrorblade stuff and whether or not he's actually, you know, going to be gone or if he's just pulling some schemes, because that's what he's all about. He's almost like a Loki-style character because even though you think he might be gone, he's just, you know, withered and is slithered off somewhere else to go hide in the darkness until he's, you know, found something else to sap some power from. The second season is going to be like that. The third season is absolutely insane. I mean, you're talking, you know, world destruction, world recreation, time shifting, you know, talking about magical sorcery that creates world forges. Because, I mean, one of the main plots of it is the character played by Troy Baker, the Invoker, making a secret plot deal. And this isn't anything that's like super spoilery. I mean, it's the main plot of the first season, but he's taking this Terrorblade's influence and he's trying to save his daughter. The Invoker's trying to save his daughter because she's got an incurable disease. And he's trying to create a world to where she can exist and not be dead in her childhood. So he wants to wipe away all of existence and recreate it just so he can have his daughter.
So good.
And Terrorblade feeds upon that. So watch the show.
Yeah.
It's awesome. A lot of good lore to go along with it. And it's been in the works for a long time creating that world. Just because you got all the way back to 2002 where they've got the basis of where this world's created. So they've had a long time for it to, marinate.
I definitely want to watch it at some point.
It's a level of fantasy that can really only be done justice, I think, through animation, with how epic everything that's going on is compared to how much a studio would actually spend on that kind of thing if a live action version of it were made.
Right.
I think animation was definitely the way to go with it. And of what I've seen, because I saw the first season, and I've seen bits and pieces of what you've been watching recently, and it's always when I end up standing there a little too long, and keep watching because it's always something epic.
He's walking through the room, and all of a sudden he finds himself hovering at the corner of the couch for like 15 minutes.
Yep. It's like, oh, I just watched this whole episode just standing here because I was in the middle of going back to the office.
Yeah.
I might actually check it out because it sounds really cool.
It
I
is
love, like dragons and things like that.
It is very cool. Dragons, magic, war, medieval times. Not the theater in the restaurant, but like the actual period.
If only.
Why not? Let's incorporate food. I also am talking about dragons.
Are you?
Kind of. Kind of. So we've all played Skyrim. Correct. And can we all not agree that it is one of the most broken games in a lot of places?
Oh, yeah.
Some places it just doesn't work. You can break it and it's just terrible. Like I broke the entire Thieves quest line because I went to see the face changer before I talked to the guy in the marketplace.
Oops.
And had to do a workaround that shouldn't have had to be a thing. It's so aggravating. But I found a game that's even more broken than Skyrim. The Sims.
Of course.
The patch notes for The Sims are epically hilarious. So I'm just going to read you some of those because they're just some of the best things that I've read. Kleptomaniac Sims can no longer steal subway stations from lots.
What? Wait, what? You could steal an entire subway station?
In Sims 3, kleptomaniac Sims could steal subway stations.
Ruin the game if I couldn't do that.
I know. Like, why?
You know how much these things are going for on the black market? A lot.
Sims can no longer woohoo in the elevator with a Sim who is on a different floor.
How did they? How though? Woohoo! Woohoo! I guess that's how. Yeah.
It's been so long since I played The Sims, but as soon as you said they can no longer woohoo, I realized that's how they talk. Woohoo!
I immediately knew what you were talking about.
The Grim Reaper will no longer be prevented from reaping souls due to band affiliation.
Band?
Band affiliation.
So if you're in like a metal band in it, death cannot claim you?
Apparently there was some specific bands that your Sims could be a part of that death would just pass them over.
That's so epic.
Good. Oh, that's its own story.
Right?
I know a lot of people that played The Sims just to exploit the parts of the game that weren't supposed to be.
It is no longer possible to try for baby with the Grim Reaper.
I love trying for baby with the Grim Reaper, though.
Yeah.
No one knows how to do it except for him.
Become enemies with child. Wish no longer appears.
Wish?
Oh, sorry. Let me. I read it poorly. Become enemies with child. Wish no longer appears.
Oh,
I wish to become enemies with a child.
Yeah, so that you can't do that anymore.
You can't roleplay Dennis the Menace in The Sims anymore?
Right.
That's not fair.
I mean, you could probably do it, but the kid's not going to target you, I guess. I don't know. Sims who are on fire will no longer be forced to attend graduation before they can put themselves out.
So if you're getting really good grades and you're on fire, man, you're cruising through it.
Yeah.
It will not let you graduate. It's like, no, you have to make a B.
You have to graduate before you can be put out.
Oh my gosh.
Pregnant Sims can no longer brawl.
Well, that is not accurate to a Southern depiction at all.
No longer will you have a good, accurate Southern trailer park. Baby Sims will no longer become stuck on a Sim's hand while driving a car. Sims will no longer receive a wish to skinny dip with mummies.
I've missed out on a lot.
I did.
Yeah.
I didn't know you could do any of these things.
I didn't know there were mummies in The Sims.
This is probably one of my favorites just because of how messed up it is. A meteor can hit a building, which case everyone will run out before the collision. Those who do not exit the building will die. Sims automatically leave if a meteor is approaching, unless it is a school in which children are not allowed to leave and will always die.
Back in your seat, Billy.
We're all going down with this.
Get under
ship.
your desk. It's the only thing that will protect you.
All right now, children, we've got imminent destruction heading our way, but you cannot leave this school building and seek any kind of shelter anywhere else. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to get right under these desks, just like this. Now, hold on to the bars. Hold on to the bars under this desk.
Why are you using big words like imminent destruction? What does that mean?
I know they never used those words when I was in school. I went to public school in the South. Imminent destruction would have gotten me a 6 on my writing assessment.
Children will no longer go on vacation alone if their parents die.
Oh, they have to stay home.
What's Macaulay Culkin going to do if he plays The Sims?
Who's paying the
Well,
bills?
he's going to do the exact same thing because he was at home. It's now harder for Sims to spontaneously combust in water.
Well, okay.
You would think so.
Sims can no longer fall in love with a tent.
What about a couch?
Didn't say anything about a
up for
couch.
grabs, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. Vegetarians and hot dog people can... Hold on. This is worded very poorly. Let me read it to myself for a second to make sense of it. Okay, vegetarians and people cannot be roasted in campfires like hot dogs anymore.
That's the ultimate FU to vegan vegetarianism. The wolf would love that. Let's roast them in the spick.
Why did it separate vegetarians and people? Because it said vegetarians and people can't
Hot
be
people.
hot people.
So if you're overheated, then you can be roasted in a fire. I don't know why. What word for word it said hot people dog.
A hot people dog.
So I assume people that are overheated. That's just my assumption.
Much like us.
Yeah.
Oh, it is so hot.
Exactly. Your vampire sim gets tired of drinking the same plasma from the same person.
Also, you can't have the one that you've got chained up to keep yourself from going and raiding
Right.
society. But there's some people that offer to be that, right? I mean, in the
know.
game, the vampire game you play, Masquerade,
Yeah.
can't you have people that are
Yeah.
dedicated to you for that reason?
Yeah, they're called ghouls.
You can't even play this with ghouls.
You can't have ghouls
in
or
Sims.
cattle or nothing.
This isn't the true Sims
I know,
anymore.
what the heck? What is this digital world becoming?
Create a Grapevine Sims where you can have a ghoul.
Now, are you still
And skinny dip with mummies.
Yeah, I mean, why not? They got so many just like wraps. I want to see them not wrapped.
Now, are they still capable of taking a wall and building it around a character you're having an extreme disagreement with until they starve to death?
Yes.
Okay,
Surely
then
you can do that.
I mean,
yeah.
you're God. And why
Yeah.
would you not be
If
able
they
to
took
do
that away, then
Well,
it wouldn't
they-
be...
If I'm God, I can make
Anything.
someone fall in love with a tent.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if it's a
Well.
single tent.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not here to judge, okay?
Gives a
I'm
whole new
just
meaning to
reading what
pitching a
they've
tent.
changed.
Zing.
Vegetarian Sims will no longer accidentally eat non-vegetarian refrigerator leftovers.
They won't eat it fresh, but they'll have it if it's left over.
Is this a tofu ham or a regular ham? Let me take a bite and find out. I ate the whole thing.
What have I
I thought I was a vegetarian. What's this?
The Beetle Nuggets collection will now be possible when the beetles are ready.
Beetle nugget?
Yeah.
Is a nugget the technical name for a beetle baby?
Maybe? I don't know.
Is a beetle baby called a nugget?
It's under Eco Lifestyle.
Should we have a new brand of Beanie Babies called Beetle Babies?
Yes.
Okay.
I feel like we should.
No, apparently Beetle Nugget is only in The Sims. That's the end of it.
Are we all looking up what beetle nuggets are?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm abstaining from looking up beetle nuggets. I don't need
You're
that.
missing out.
I don't need that in my search history.
You're missing out.
So children and teens can no longer die from motivational failure while on a timeout. Pianists will no longer continue playing pianos that have been detonated.
Thank you, developers.
Now, what's The Sims turned into? Now that I'm hearing all these patch notes, like, what did it turn into? 'Cause
Sounds vanilla.
It's like, where did it start? It sounded like just this godless wasteland.
Which is
that
what we
now
all
they're
want.
trying to, I don't know, take this game to church and get us saved.
That's exactly what this is. They sprinkled holy water on the Sims, and now we have this abomination.
Sims can no longer leave their toddler inside a bar after closing time.
Why? Still no more Southern trailer parks.
Fixed a tuning issue so the Sims can now vomit at acceptable levels.
Oh my god! What's acceptable vomit levels?
Like vomiting is an unacceptable level.
Like they just
at
start
any amount.
They start vomiting and it like floods your Sim City.
Oh God, I have no idea, but this is great.
I think that was a thing that I remember. Like, whenever they would start throwing up, like, it wasn't just in like this one tile square to where an actual vomit level would be. It's like you got the entire kitchen covered in like this just vile goo everywhere because one of them got sick.
Like a swimming pool amount of vomit.
That you can't swim in with a mummy, apparently.
No, what the heck?
Naked.
Now, if they're going to give your character
clothed,
Epigac,
maybe.
how are they? So what if it downplays how sick they are because they can't throw up enough? What if they die from that?
Exactly. Put them in timeout. It'll solve itself. Tourist NPCs can now become impregnated. The magical laundry bear, Abracadabra, will no longer block Sims from moving after he disappears.
A magical laundry bear?
That leaves an invisible wall that you could no longer escape from.
Oh my god!
That's a laundry demon.
All of these patch notes are like stories unto themselves.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like, how did I not know about this back when I actually played The Sims?
This pianist who just continued to play a piano that got blown up by C4.
I think
Somehow was just able to continue to play it.
I think the last Sims game I played was House Party Expansion Pack.
They did Sims SCP so they could like contain all this nonsense.
Exactly. Yeah, so that's all the funny ones that I've found, and all those were just up to Sims 4 or 5.
Jeez.
There's so many videos just you can find on YouTube of just somebody reading various patch notes, and so I've been going through some of them just because they're absolutely hilarious with the ridiculousness involved.
It's telling me of a much better game before patchwork. That's what it's
Truth.
doing. It's like if they fixed all the patches in Goat Simulator, it would no longer be the game we know and love.
I mean, Goat Simulator is one giant glitch.
It's a big bug nugget.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like my character fell in love with a tent and got married, but then had like this affair with death.
It had a baby stuck to its hand while they skinny dipped with a mummy.
That was the baby that me and Death made. The tent is now being forced to raise. So last week I talked about religions of the light side of the Force that were not the Jedi. Because we talked about how we wanted to see some of these brought to life, brought to the screen. Some of them have been. But this time, I wanted to get real dark with it. And we're going to talk about the dark side religions other than the Sith. And I'm excited because
I know none of them.
You know one of them.
Nuh-uh.
The Night Sisters of Dathomir?
Yeah, I know that one. You're right. I was way off.
Okay, that's my first one.
I'm sorry. I was way off. The first one I already know. You can skip it. It's fine.
I was trying to ease us into this topic. So the Night Sisters of Dathomir believe kind of in more of a unifying force in the sense of like dark and light. That's just like some ignorant version of like what the unifying force really is. And they kind of worship these twin deities or spirits that govern the force and kind of like nature too. And so they use this magical like ichor of their planet to do their magic and stuff with. And I thought that was really cool.
It is cool. They're really connected to the planet.
Yeah.
Like really connected to it. And they live out in the woods like classic what kind of witches. Yeah, like classic witches basically.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I like that.
So were these depicted in something Star Wars?
Yes, the Clone
maybe?
Wars.
Okay, that's why.
Darth
I
Maul
think
has a
about it.
lot to do with these sisters, and there's a lot of really good story there with there. And
see, I don't know. I guess, I mean, because all of these give me, since I've not seen a lot of it, I've really just seen the main movies and maybe read a little bit of comic books about Star Wars and stuff, but all these I'm just looking up and like finding out for myself, and I want to see them in like movie, like or like a series, like a TV series or something.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Every time I see one of these, it just gives me these ideas for stories that could happen.
Oh yeah.
So as far as I understand, they only kind of use their powers to like preserve and protect their tribe. Their origins are kind of ambiguous because there's stories that like they were originally trained by this Jedi named Aaliyah, but there are no records in the Jedi records of this Aaliyah. And apparently they use like light whips and light bows are like their weapons.
Yes.
What is exactly a light bow?
Sorcery.
Does this look like a crossbow?
Yeah, it's more like a crossbow or a bow and arrow in the sense of the Night Sisters. They use more like a bow and arrow style,
Cool.
to where the string they're pulling back has like an energy in it, and the bolt that fires from it, the arrow, is basically just energy as well.
Laser.
Yeah.
And then we've got the Knights of Ren. So they are.
I didn't know that was a religion.
Yes,
Cool, I've heard of these.
They are Force-sensitive, masked warriors. So they wear masks. Their philosophy is kind of epitomized by the lightsaber, which is called Ren. And the man who wields Ren is also called Ren. Kind of confusing, but the saber is said by Ren, the man, to have always existed. And like the lightsaber itself, Ren, is kind of like the actual leader of the Knights of Ren. The saber itself is like, so they almost like swear themselves to the essence of the lightsaber itself, the one that's always existed in their minds.
Kind of like the Mandalorians and the dark saber, except more dark side force.
Sure, maybe.
Yeah, because the holder of the dark saber is the ruler of Mandalore.
Yeah, exactly.
And then
is the Mandalorian.
the Knights of Ren and
hold the saber, but
Now-
in this case, the saber is their leader.
Right. That's even more like profound than the other one.
So they're like these raiders and marauders that are kind of causing this destruction across the galaxy. And they call the dark side the shadow, which is kind of, they use the shadows, aka the dark side, to fuel their abilities and things. And they use like ranged and close quarters weapons to kind of make them even that much more devastating.
I wonder if calling it that, you said they call it the shadow. Mm-hmm. I wonder if that's distancing themselves from the Sith and calling it the dark side, or if that's just what they've always called it. Like,
I wonder.
I wonder if that
Could
but
be
it's
anything.
I mean, it sounds like it's an ancient thing, like considering they say the saber has always existed. So I'm assuming their religion has existed for maybe far beyond even the Sith having the name of the Sith.
Right.
So
Yeah, it's
maybe,
possible.
Yeah.
The way of the sword.
Yeah, that's
kind
really
of.
cool.
Yeah. So then we get the Acolytes of the Beyond. And they are like a twisted version of the Church of the Force, which I talked about last week. Mm-hmm. So they're basically these non-force sensitive followers of either the dark or the light side. The Acolytes of the Beyond, of course, follow the dark side. And they kind of saw everyone as like slaves to the Force, and they worshipped all the Sith Lords, and they even claimed to like receive dreams from the ancient Sith Lords and stuff. So they kind of worship them as demigods in a way.
So in Rise of Skywalker, we've got all these dark hooded figures in the room that we really didn't get much of an explanation for. That would be a pretty good example of why all of them would be there, because those are probably the acolytes that were worshiping Palpatine as like the Sith.
Correct.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Well, and apparently they formed after the Battle of Endor, so that would make even more sense, because that's when the Empire fell, and some actually worship Darth Vader specifically, and they like claim to have his lightsaber and stuff. I think that's from like Aftermath, the novel series that kind of was supposed to be like the aftermath of the Empire.
Yeah.
And building up for The Force Awakens, right when Disney bought it and everything.
So far I know of all these. I didn't think I knew of any of them.
Okay, well now we're getting to the ones you probably don't know.
Okay, cool. I'm excited.
Yeah, so this one I couldn't find a whole lot on. The Sorcerers of Tond and the Yukambe.
Go on.
IDK. I don't know. Basically, they just use magic, kind of like the Night Sisters of Dathomir, and the Jedi eventually attempt to like convert them unsuccessfully to the dark side, or to the light side, and so then they slip off into the dark side or something. But there's not a whole lot about them other than they're just like sorcerers. Or at least I didn't find it, and I'm sure it's out there. I just didn't have time to look it all up because I thought these other ones were a little bit more interesting.
Yeah.
For example, the Sorcerers of Rand. So they don't believe in the Force, like light or dark dichotomy. They think it's just like this more encompassing, this grander being. So like their idea of the Force is even bigger than just the dark or the light side. It's something even more grand. I don't know a better way to say that, but they call it the dark. And it's really their philosophy is like only power is real, and the only real power is the power to destroy. And that's so metal.
Well, that answered the question that I was thinking.
What?
I was like, well, then how can they be considered dark side? But then yeah.
Well, they call the higher being that's higher than the dark or the light.
Like I said, you answered my question.
Yeah. So. Think of it as more of a void, I would almost say. Because like like I said, their philosophy is more of like destruction is this like eternal constant in the galaxy or in the universe, and they call that the way of the dark. It's dark destruction is this permanent change in the universe, and through destruction you create this void. Like I don't know, it's kind of complicated.
They just love black holes. Like they're all about some black holes.
Yeah. Basically a pit of cosmic chaos is kind of how I've heard people talk about them.
I bet they were a fan of the First Order's giant star killer thing that they had. What was it called? The giant planet destroyer that can destroy entire systems.
Star Killer Base?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like, I bet that they loved that because if they love destruction, like, okay, well, here's a planet that kills all planets.
Well, they may have actually orchestrated that themselves because, like, they have access to lots of mysterious powers, and they're kind of rumored to be able to eradicate like anything with their psychic energy, and they use this power called dark sight to create. Or like to see possible futures and choose the possible future that best suits them.
With the most destruction.
Right.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
I bet they would
pretty nasty.
That's one of my favorites so far, I think.
I know, I think so too.
Cosmic destruction through the Force as a whole, instead of having sides.
Yeah, these would be like your elder gods in Lovecraft. This would be like your Cthulhu's and things like that. These would be actual demigods, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So do you think if they were all gathering together at an eating place, it would be Golden Corral, since they all love just that utter destruction?
It's imminent. The imminent destruction of Golden Corral.
They're like using their telepathy with each other and just using the Force for that, but also just to let everybody know, like, oh, this is awful.
So then we've got the Prophets of the Dark Side. And this was started by Darth Cognis, who was like a devout believer in the rule of two. But then his apprentice, Darth Millennial, believed that like in the strength of numbers. So Millennial kind of establishes the prophets when he like fights his master and breaks away from them. And their ultimate goal was to kind of replace the Sith. But then Palpatine finds them and tricks them into joining the Empire to kind of like burn them down from the inside. But then a few survive, leaving the Prophets of the Dark Side as like a dark side Force religion. But I just thought it was funny that, of course, the Millennial ruined it.
They're probably even more pissed at the Sith because of how Palpatine did that then too.
Right.
Like, because it's weird thinking of like enemies of like the dark side having enemies like within the dark side as well. Because it seems like they all have the same, other than of course wanting to kill their master and become the master themselves. But just the idea of even these light side religions having beef with one another, and then the dark side as well. Like they're not just fighting each other all the time; they're fighting themselves.
Yeah,
and it's interesting. Like,
it is. And it would be fun to see it play out.
Yes,
like I feel like the execs at Disney are like, no. Star Wars is Jedi versus Sith.
Yeah,
we need like a blue lightsaber versus a red one.
Yeah,
the end. But it's like no, like you could expand the lore a little bit and. Yeah. Make it a little bit broader. Yeah, there's the Jedi and the Sith, and they still kind of are really heavy hitters and big, powerful entities, but we can have little smaller scale stories, even that are still epic.
Yeah.
What if we make the lightsaber green?
Or purple.
Or
Purple.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say I would like more of a Star Wars that like lets the viewer think, and lets us almost theorize as we're watching, or lets us like It's like whenever making a good villain, like you want to have a part of them that you relate to, but they
Yes.
take it too far.
Yes.
So I would like for them to have more of that as a grand idea, not just within characters, but as in the ideas of the Force itself.
Yes.
Like all these religions, because they're all like, there's some that all of us hear about and we're like, oh, I kind of like relate to that one.
Yeah.
But then you can see either atrocities that they deal in or things that they decide not to do,
Right.
you know, that you think they should.
Even within the dark and the light sides.
Yes.
Like some of the light side stuff I would disagree with. Some of the dark side stuff I'm like, heck yeah.
Yeah, like a Tales of the Force like series, like just not
Yes.
not Tales of the Jedi or Tales of the Sith, like
Like,
Tales of the Force.
That's a really good idea. I think they should do that. And they should do the Shapers of Crovar because I like these guys too. These guys sound really freaking cool. So they are like basically battle shamans of their tribes and stuff. So they're like superstitious but bold. They distrust technology really heavily. That goes kind of into their superstitions.
So they're
and
Amish.
stuff. Sure, you could put it that way. So any like unseen force, power, like telepathy, like anything that's not like detectable with the eyes, they really distrust it too, like technology. And they see people that use stuff like that as like witches and warlocks and they suppress them. So like if Obi-Wan Kenobi came up into their camp or whatever and they saw him doing telekinesis, they would like treat him like a witch or a warlock.
Weird.
Yeah, and so they preferred like confrontation over diplomacy too. So it's like anytime they have beef with anybody, they're just like, let's just settle this with violence, please.
Because diplomacy is intangible.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
but violence is completely
There's a
tangible.
clear winner.
Yeah.
So, but basically, the Crovar, they just kind of use their dark side energies, and it's more akin to sorcery, in the sense of, well, I mean, I don't know. I take sorcery as like you're drawing upon some sort of mysterious power to wield magic. But they use like the 4 elements, like earth, air, fire, and water. And I think that they kind of also like enhance their emotions and
But not
things.
heart.
No, they're not summoning Captain Planet.
Dang it.
All of these are more interesting than just the regular ones.
Yeah,
the
they
ones
are
we know
interesting.
of, I think, but I think it's just because we've been just overshown all the Jedi and all the Sith stuff that it's like for fans like us, we want more.
Yeah.
I want to expand from that just because even in our world, it's not one thing and the other. Like there's a lot of branches of a lot of different stuff. So yeah. I want to see some things like this.
Right. Well, and then you can track it in time. So it's like, okay, we're going to do this Shapers of Crovar story. Well, what time period?
Yeah.
Because maybe they've gotten over some of their superstitions, and they do use tech now, but their origins are more based in this. Or just let's go back in time and do the actual Shapers of Crovar as like these battle shamans who are like trying to take out these invaders or something. I don't know.
I think a good example of this working is the Mandalorian because it's its whole other thing. Like, yes, we've had Mandalorians in the show and in the movies, but this show is just like Jedi and Sith are out there and they're a part of it, but it's following the Mandalore way. And it's not a Sith or a Jedi way. It's its own thing. And people love it because it's something new and something different. And it's explaining something that's already been there that we've only seen as looking cool. Now tell us why it's cool.
Right.
And I think the success of The Mandalorian, I think they could draw
part.
from that and do something like this.
Yeah, well,
instead.
Mandalorian could run across some of these
I,
characters.
I think it'd be cool to just have something Star Wars, released that comes from the dark side. Because,
Yes.
the Mandalorian is kind of in a gray area because he's a child of Death Watch. His faction that he's a part of brought destruction to the planet Mandalore. So it's kind of like a bridge to get us over there to where you can focus some show or standalone movie or whatever around one of these dark side religions. It would just be awesome.
I think so too.
But I think they're scared of that to follow something of the bad guys. It's like, but I mean,
they kind of did it with Reva in a way, but
she was just undercover good guy the
Basically.
whole time.
Yeah, you're right,
Like,
you're
it was
right.
still a good guy pretending to be a bad guy.
You're correct.
Like it didn't, and it followed. I mean, Obi-Wan was the good guy. He was the main character. She's just like a side character. So it's like to have something as a main character, like, well, even where we got a hint of Red Dawn and Darth Maul from the Han Solo movie, the way that ended, showing Darth Maul like a projection of him, like in him being in charge of this whole like crime ring, basically. Like we could get a Darth Maul Red Dawn movie that's just about his experience in running this like crime ring thing.
Yeah.
Like that would be really cool, and we would get more Darth Maul on the screen.
And we've also got Ahsoka's story coming up in the television show.
And she kind of breaks that dark and light dichotomy, doesn't she?
She's more of a walking the middle
Yeah,
kind of
I hope
person,
that's good.
so,
I hope that's good.
Yeah, maybe we'll see more of her struggles of that like through the show. But
Part of me just feels like if they couldn't even get Obi-Wan right, that I don't have much high hope for Ahsoka.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It was cool on Mandalorian, so maybe it'll be cool in its own show.
yeah, I hope so.
Me too.
Well, that's because the creator of Ahsoka is going to be in charge of her story for that too.
Filoni.
So the chances of it failing are minuscule to me, I think. And if he does fail with it, I think he would be even more mad at himself than we would be.
Well, and even if it fails, at least it's failing in the hands of its like creator,
Right.
In the
It's like I've never seen like Clone Wars, any of that. I feel like the lady that played Ahsoka did very good.
Oh, she killed
for
it.
not knowing anything about the character.
She killed it.
So I thought she did awesome.
No,
So,
you'd be even happier about it. Like if
isn't
you watch
is it Zoe Saldana that played her, or was it some other lady?
Rosario.
Okay.
Rosario.
Okay, they got a real similar face. I wasn't
I
entirely
love
sure.
the twin white lightsabers too. It's just
Yes.
so cool.
Yeah, that was cool.
She's awesome, and we're awesome.
We are.
At least I think so. And all those 5 stars on all the different podcast apps, I think those say so too. Thank you for listening to us on those things and for giving us the 5 stars, whether you listen to us on Spotify, iTunes, or Good Pods. All those places are where we're at and where we're in your ears. And that's a really nice place to be. It's really cozy in there. So along with the 5 stars, do a little comment on why you love us, why you hate us, as long as there's 5 stars attached. And now we have Redbubble and Teespring links within the description where you can go get really cool merch with a bunch of stuff with our logo and names. And I ordered a coffee mug and a t-shirt that I'm really excited about. So do that and we'll be even happier, and we'll have money to where we can get even better microphones.
And if you'd like to join us on the social media platforms, just so you can ask us questions from the show, maybe to stop playing coy with us a little bit. Like, what would be your favorite dish at Golden Corral to get diarrhea over? Like, we're not playing coy with it. We know you're going to get the squirts, so let's find out at least what was worth the risk. You know, you can get on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram by looking up at Nerd Grapevine. Or if you want to donate a little bit to the cause, get a shiny holographic sticker, unlock content that's not readily available to everybody, get on Patreon, look up Nerd Grapevine, and that's where you'll find us on there. And as I like to do, I will give a disclaimer at this point. Do not just openly listen to this stuff without trying to explain what's going on to your peers that are listening to it, because they are not going to understand. We squirrel quite a bit, and most of you keep up with us. You're good at it. You squirrel right along with us. But if you're not used to the squirreling and you're not used to the back and forth, you might cause yourself to have a little bit of...
So I went to the Crystals that recently just reopened in our town. They have changed their French fries to something that is so much better. It's got this crispy layer outside of the crispy layer of the French fry, and it's delicious. And that diarrhea-looking chili on the top tastes good. I don't know what happened. Maybe it's all brand new staff, but it's like another level of Crystals than what we had previously. And you should find us on Discord, and we can talk about Crystals and how much better it is since they completely rebuilt the building. Or we can talk about who knows whatever. There's a link in our description. We can swap memes. We've got the Midjourney bot, so we can make cool stuff using the AI that we spoke about on another episode. Or you can just talk to us about whatever. I'll listen to your life. I ain't got shit going on. So hit us up. We're on there live, uncut, uncensored, and irrevocably circumcised.
Okay, pupils.
Yes, master.
It is time to master the skill of the maniacal evil laugh. You must start slow, like so. How did Darth Millennial get back here?
Well, actually, I was just thinking that maybe the evil laugh could be something a little bit more inspiring to people as opposed to cackles, because my favorite kind of evil laugh is from like...
When life gives you grapes, Darth Millennial,
when life gives me grapes, I'm going to look at them and appreciate them for how round and smooth they are, and then I'm going to show my teacher that I can levitate them with my hand, and I can put electricity inside of them without destroying them. And
Someone strike him down.
and look, they're levitating and glowing. They're glowing grapes now. They're just right above my hand, and they're just glowing. And wait, now watch this.
Master, I don't like this.
I can give it a little force push.
optimism
Force
is
push out this way.
No.
And now they're dancing and they're glowing.
so much.
Yay! They're dancing.